came home without telling anyone, because I wanted the quiet surprise, the ordinary kind. My flight landed before dawn. The house smelled the same detergent, old wood, the faint metal of the radiator. There was a mug drying on the rack, shoes by the door. Nothing broken. My wife said he was camping with Grandpa. She said it quickly, like a weather report. I nodded because nodding is easy when you've been gone too long, and you want to believe the shape of things hasn't changed. Stood in my son's room longer than necessary. His bed was made with the dinosaur blanket folded the way he hated. The window was open an inch. I told myself it meant nothing. Then I told myself that telling myself things was the problem. The drive to the cabin took 2 hours. The road remembered me even if the people didn't. Thought about how many times I'd handed my judgment to someone else and called it trust. I thought about the relief of not deciding. The cabin sits back from the lake, trees thick enough to keep secrets without trying. I called his name once. I didn't shout. Shouting felt like asking permission. I found him behind the shed first, then farther back, where the ground slopes down and the mosquitoes find you before you hear them. He was barefoot. His shirt was gone. The chain was thin but real, looped around the trunk like a suggestion that could hurt you if you ignored it. "Daddy," he said, didn't sound like a word so much as a fact. "Please help me. I can't take it anymore." I didn't look for a face to blame, looked for the lock. My hands worked the way they had overseas, quiet, exact. The chain came away. He leaned into me and then folded, all at once, like he'd been waiting for gravity to mean something else. He'd been there 3 days. He told me that later, in pieces. Time behaves strangely when you're small and waiting. I wrapped him in my jacket, counted breaths because counting keeps you from making promises you can't keep. His skin was hot. The bites were everywhere, a map of how still he'd been forced to be. "There's someone behind the cabin," he whispered, like it was weather again. "Hear them at night." I set him in the truck and locked the doors. The space behind the cabin wasn't dramatic. No trapdoor. No blood, just a chair dragged into the wrong place, rope coiled and used, a cooler with ice packs replaced too often to be accidental. Control leaves fingerprints even when it thinks it's tidy. I didn't go looking for anyone. I went back to the truck and called. The call was short. My voice didn't shake. When the dispatcher asked if my son was safe, I said, "Is now," because the word now mattered. Authority arrived in the way authority should, visible, procedural, unarguable. Sirens cut the afternoon. Uniforms stepped into the clearing and changed its meaning. Questions were asked and written down, photos taken. A medic knelt and spoke to my son like a person whose words had weight. He was covered with a blanket that wasn't mine. They asked about family. I gave names and didn't soften them. When they asked where my wife was, I told them the truth and watched a boundary draw itself in real time. Grandpa was found at the cabin before dusk, sitting where he thought no one would look. He didn't resist. He explained. Explanations are another way of asking for permission. The deputy told him to stand and turn around, and that was the moment control moved where it belonged. At the hospital, my son slept with his hand in mine, fingers still curled like he expected something to be taken. Nurse documented every mark without comment. Belief doesn't need commentary. My wife arrived and spoke like words could be a bridge. Listened until the doctor said visiting hours were over. Silence can be an answer that doesn't bruise. Paperwork took the night. Statements, times, dates. I noticed how much comfort there is in forms that don't care who you love. The law did not ask me to forgive. It asked me to be precise. In the weeks after, people wanted to know how I felt. I told them I was busy. Which was true. There were routines to rebuild and others to dismantle. Trust did not shatter, thinned until light came through, and I could see what had always been there. There was no victory to celebrate, just a steadiness that returned when I did what I should have done sooner decide. Son learned to sleep without listening for footsteps. I learned that dignity isn't loud. It shows up on time, does the work, and stays. Some nights I still drive past the road to the cabin and don't turn. That's not avoidance, it's choice. And for now, choice is enough.